City of Barrie Mayor and Council have for many months been deceiving voters and taxpayers through a public relations and media game of three-card Monty. The intent of this game of political sleight of hand appears to be a self-serving need to sweep away public concern regarding their malicious refusal to provide even the most basic of necessities to help ensure the survival of the growing number of human beings who are forced by circumstances beyond their control to live without shelter on the streets and in encampments. The Draconian policies implemented by Mayor Alex Nuttall serve only to condemn and persecute the destitute simply because they are poor. This kind of human rights attack would be passionately challenged if it were targeted against people of a specific race, sexual orientation, gender identity, or religious faith. However, the homeless are an economic minority made up of all kinds of people, so the safeguards intended to protect us all do nothing. Mayor Alex Nuttall and the Barrie Police Service clearly feel free to violate court orders, to ignore the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and to destroy the only shelter these people have available. Who will be the next group on their list to be attacked? And what rights will be revoked by these self-appointed sole arbiters? The tactics of oppression used by these small-minded thugs are not only cold-hearted, but they are also infinitely more expensive than embracing a compassionate solution. And the bill is being paid by the tax-paying citizens of a democracy in which we are all supposed to be treated equally. The politically motivated and unsupported rhetoric is not only deceptive, but is also antithetical to every credible study of homelessness. Reports from around the world show that it is much cheaper to provide housing to the homeless than to cover the constantly growing costs of criminalizing and attacking the poorest people of our society, who want only to survive during our often lethal winters. When transitional housing is made available, there is less need for police intervention, which means their budget can be reduced. Crime rates, especially those associated with fulfilling the needs of survival, decrease dramatically. There are fewer emergency hospital visits for treatment of infection, burns, exposure, and assault. There are fewer calls for emergency services, resulting in less strain on their resources and budget. There are fewer public complaints about tents in parks or on the street, which use police resources. There are fewer attacks by housed people confronting homeless encampments and those on the street. Use of illegal drugs and alcohol are reduced, allowing for better results from voluntary rehabilitation. The game of deception and distraction by the Mayor and Council of the City of Barrie has expanded as time has passed, and now includes denying established independent media access to taxpayer-funded public warming facilities, Barrie Police refusing to directly answer media questions about a claim of multiple deaths by exposure, reluctantly providing only the absolute minimum in warming services, which supports only about 5% of the homeless, trying to shift the responsibility for their own incompetence onto property owners in Barrie. Regardless of deceptive political propaganda, the sudden increase in homelessness is the result of fraud and identity theft, illegal evictions by mostly corporate landlords, insufficient funding for people receiving Ontario Works and the Ontario Disability Support Program, post-pandemic changes in law that favor corrupt landlords over the rights of tenants, personal or workplace injury, and chronic illnesses like cancer. This means that homelessness could happen to anybody, including you or any member of your family, which understandably makes the voters and taxpayers feel nervous and insecure. That works against the popularity of the current Conservative government, especially as Doug Ford is responsible for implementing many of the harmful policies that were intended to help his wealthy supporters at the expense of the working class. Our current mayor, Alex Nuttall, is a former one-term Conservative member of federal parliament. Prior to that, the aspiring politician was asked by his own Conservative riding association to withdraw as a candidate for the provincial Progressive Conservative Party after serious irregularities caused his own supporters to question his integrity and the manager of his campaign to resign, citing issues of ethics. Alex Nuttall's political loyalties are transparent, and his integrity is in question, which is why he and his council of sycophants have chosen to help Premier Doug Ford paint a picture about the homeless community that is inaccurate and misleading so they can transfer the blame for their own misguided policies and those of provincial conservatives onto the victims of their incompetence. This brand of politician, the world over, are all too often elected on a platform of fear. To win elections, they need a bogeyman to point to as the cause of all of society's concerns and issues, most of which they created or chose to ignore because fixing the issues did not benefit their wealthy supporters. President Donald Trump is famous for focusing his vitriol at immigrants, specifically Latinos and Muslims, and he manufactured other made-up threats to cover for his intimidation-fueled form of government, like out-of-control socialism, the supposed plots of George Soros, the supposed deep state that he has now created, transgender people using public washrooms, and legal Haitian immigrants who he groundlessly accused of eating dogs and cats. Ford uses racist dog whistles, like scapegoating international students for the healthcare crisis, while ignoring his government's pattern of chronic underfunding. He also creates issues that don't exist, like the horrors of bike lanes. His biggest and most often abused scapegoat is the unhoused community, which he said in a press conference need to get off your ASS and start working. Ford's unsupported bluster ignores the reality that many of the unsheltered and homeless are employed but are unable to afford housing due to skyrocketing rents and stagnant wages. That crisis was largely created by Ford's policies and those of previous conservative governments, which refused to build social housing. Instead of resolving the issue and accepting accountability, these self-serving hypocrites attack the victims of their own errors in judgment so they can knowingly and willfully deceive voters and taxpayers by redirecting the blame to people who they know cannot fight back. That action is practically the dictionary definition of a bully, which we all know are cowards. A recent study confirmed that more than 90% of the greater than 80,000 people currently living without shelter in Ontario would eagerly accept any help offered, including transitional housing through non-conventional means, such as moving forward from within the security of a tiny house community. The Ontario and municipal governments have an obligation to all taxpayers to provide solutions to the housing crisis, but it is simply easier for them to bully and to cause suffering to those they have already harmed. Barrie Mayor Alex Nuttall has since his first day in office worked to bring pain and suffering to the weakest and most vulnerable sector of our community. Although he professes to be a devout Christian, it appears he skipped Sunday school when they taught the scripture of, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged." From his actions, it is quite evident that Alex Nuttall manufactured a facade of faith to win Christian votes, and that he neither practices what he preaches nor lives by the scriptures of the religion he claims to follow. Alex Nuttall's first political attack against the homeless in June of 2023 became a national news story that brought disgrace and shame to the city of Barrie. Without standard notice, and only a few months after he was elected as mayor by a wafer-thin 777 votes by an electorate of more than 31,000, a first-time councillor tabled a bold motion that drew protest from hundreds of taxpayers due to its inherent cruelty. That motion was believed to have been proposed by Alex Nuttall. The motion was pushed through by council to avoid public feedback, and there was little, if any, consultation with impartial experts or the community. The proposed new law would have criminalized compassion and empowered bylaw officers to issue fines to tax-paying citizens if they showed the audacity to help any member of the homeless community. The punishment for kindness extended to donations of money, food, clothing, survival needs, and even a bottle of water if handed from one human being to another without a permit. The proposed abuse of power was a barbaric attack on the poor that drew so much scorn from media and politicians across Canada that it was quickly sent back to staff for review and was never heard about again. Nuttall's unfounded one-man war on the poor did not end there. According to a local church minister, when Barrie's mayor was first sworn, proudly placing his hand on the Bible he defies on a daily basis, he was asked by a group of clergies to provide porta-potties to encampments. However, Nuttall is reported to have responded with words to the effect of "no hope in hell." Then, this hypocritical Christian of convenience used his own refusal as an excuse to attack those who were forced to survive under these worst imaginable conditions, without even the tiny dignity of a toilet. Then came threats of illegal encampment evictions that Nuttall was fully aware violated Section 7 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and also the January 27, 2023 ruling of Justice Michael J. Valente of the Superior Court of Justice, which protected the rights of the unsheltered as follows.
I declare pursuant to Section 52(1) of the Constitution Act, 1982, that the bylaw violates Section 7 of the Charter and that it deprives the homeless residents of the encampment of life, liberty, and security of the person in a manner not in accordance with the principles of fundamental justice, and is not saved by Section 1 of the Charter.
Plans of forcible eviction were temporarily curtailed in May of 2024, when members of Ryan's Hope, advocates for the homeless community, and our media service gathered at Milligan's Pond to record the abuse of power and violations of the law that were planned to be committed by the City of Barrie and the Barrie Police Service. Then in September of 2024, aggressive bylaw officers, out-of-town contractors, and officers of the Barrie Police Service unlawfully evicted long-term encampment residents at Birksey Park. To silence the truth, the City of Barrie trespassed all members of Ryan's Hope, a well-established advocacy group, and our registered and 10-year established community media service.
All of these other people in this park are not wanting to leave, and we are here to stand up for their Charter of Rights.
Well, you've been trespassed from the park.
You are violating the law. We are not violating the law.
You've been trespassed from the park? This is a closed park?
Okay.
And I'm media.
Please leave the park.
I am media.
Please leave the park.
I am media.
Okay.
A registered media company.
Okay. You've been trespassed from the park.
The reason for the ban was transparent, as the City of Barrie did not want us to record the unlawful actions of bylaw officers and those of the Barrie Police Service. The Barrie Police Service, under the instructions of City Hall, which likely came directly from Alex Nuttall, went so far in their abuse of authority as to arrest a young female psychotherapist who wanted only to console her registered clients who lived in the park, and also a journalist from our well-established media service that is known for our contributions to local charities, not-for-profits, and benevolent community groups. In 2020, at the peak of the pandemic, our producer and crew were nominated and voted to the highest level for the City of Barrie and Chamber of Commerce Paying It Forward Award for altruism. Regardless, officers of the Barrie Police Service felt empowered sufficiently by City Hall to willfully jackboot their authority over the rights of people who wanted only to maintain a safe place to sleep, and advocates and media who were there to help those experiencing trauma, and to report on the unlawful actions of those same officers who were representing the interests of the City of Barrie that had authorized their actions. That style of management is indicative of a dictatorial personality, which is a form of leadership used by weak and insecure individuals who require that all others follow their commands with neither argument nor debate. Sadly, for Alex Nuttall, but thankfully for the community, not everybody will bow to the social bigotry of the self-imposed emperor. Some genuine people, both Christian and atheist, support the oppressed and help those in need, while Alex Nuttall takes barbaric actions intended only to hurt the weakest and most defenseless members of our society. While Alex Nuttall garners money and support by pretending to be something he is not, the work of aiding the poor and helping the needy is being done by those whose actions are antithetical to the person who Alex Nuttall truly represents himself to be. Many of those who oppose the draconian tactics of the Mayor and Council seek to challenge the legality of their orders and will not surrender to oppression, such as by summoning our self-indulgent dictator to testify at the trials for trespassing, as levied on a mental health professional and a journalist in a public park where police and bylaw officers acted unlawfully.
Are you going to come over here and stand up and walk over here?
No. You can put me in the car, take me away, arrest me, give me a trial date. And I'll be talking, you are under about 6 different cameras right now. We will be presenting this to all of Canada.
You're going to be issued a provincial offense notice.
I don't care.
And you're going to release
Flash to your face everywhere.
And I'm going to walk right across again.
Police
I
are
am
trying
media.
to document to making
You
your
cannot
document
step over the rights of media. Section 2B of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
There is the trespass level. We're not infringing on your
Yes, you are. You're inhibiting everybody's ability to see what you're actually doing back here.
This area is
From where you're permitted to do it. Well,
You've had that sign up for 2 days.
That's not how long.
Yes, it does. It was up for 2 days.
Why
and
don't you want
suddenly,
anybody in
magically,
there
I was the only media
resisting
that
this?
wasn't allowed to be here. And then, after I pointed that out to you,
John, it's everyone's not allowed in other than contractors or contractors by the city of Barrie. Or
The criminals. The people that are carrying puppets.
Criminals.
Say it as it is. Like, stop.
you cannot stop
Say it like
media
it
from
is.
reporting the
There's
criminal
so many words
activities
there.
of the city of Barrie.
Stop using your bullshit language. Say it as it
Are you going to
is.
stand up?
You know exactly
Toronto
what to
media,
do.
we need you here now.
And if you release me over
A
there, I'm just going
member
to walk
of the
back on here
media,
again.
the only member of Barrie Media that had the courage to come up to this park today to document human rights violations.
The purpose of the media is to document social and other issues, which include the eviction of the city's citizens from an encampment where their rights are protected. Also, the day before the trespass orders were issued, our producer recorded city contractors being offered obvious bribes by a citizen who wanted to show her gratitude for cleaning out the unsheltered human beings who had nowhere else to go. The Mayor and Council of the City of Barrie have shown repeatedly that their draconian war against the homeless is self-serving, politically and likely financially motivated, and that they would rather spend millions of dollars of our taxpayer money to act as bullies in a pointless series of ongoing attacks that can be avoided simply by working instead to help those in desperate need. There are workable options to reduce and even eliminate the homeless crisis, but they have nothing to do with ripping out the only shelter available to these brothers, sisters, sons, and daughters and forcing them to wander the streets of Barrie, struggling to survive in a world where our supposed leaders have abandoned them.